And we are recording. Did everybody get a message that it's recording?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good, good. Thank you. Thank you. So I was talking about external documentation, and we don't want something as simple as 6. Explain what the program's doing. Explain what you're asking for. A couple were side 1. That's all I saw, and then an empty box. Side 2, and an empty box. In this course, we're going to be working on making things look pretty. We're starting to think about how would I sell a product, because coming out of, as I said, 1 to 3 different courses for you all, you have a coding side experience. And what we're doing in this class is a lot of stuff with classes, and you're going to see a different side of coding, a little less calculating, a little more user friendliness. Okay, so the first thing again is this external documentation, internal documentation. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. You're going to see as we go through the book and you're in a learning process, you're going to see documentation and go, wow, I'm glad that's there, because it made the next line of code a little more understandable, because it's the first time I've ever seen it and I don't know what it means. Putting your name and things like that in the beginning of the program, when you wrote it, hey, this program uses a special block of code that you might want, on and on and on. So this is notes for the programmer. And there might be times you get a programming job and you're trying to fix somebody's code up, you don't know what they're doing. But if they put documentation inside this internal documentation, you get a better idea of what's going on. You're like, oh, now I get it. And I see where they went wrong, and it's able for me to fix. So this is info for the user. This is notes for you or the programmers. Okay. In this class, we're going to be doing lots of work with classes. And a big part of that is creating GUIs. And as a programmer in CPS 121 or an intro course, you use the console a lot. And some instructors really like you using the console. Well, the console is for programmers. If I was to try to sell my product, nobody can open up an IDE for Java and understand how to compile and run and use the console. They want to be able to get an executable file and just use with the GUIs. So in this course, no console, GUIs. And that's why we actually start with chapter 12, because we're going to up your GUIs from dialogue and message boxes to things that look a little bit nicer. And as you did the code listings, not all of you, but as you did the code listings for this chapter, for this class today, you saw how we're going to start to use GUIs more and more. Coming out of 162, if you would have had me for 162, you would know I wouldn't even have to say this, because it's a habit of what you were doing. And what I mean by that is writing some sort of algorithm, writing something down before you even start taking it. Oh, here's an assignment. I'm open in Java and I'm ready to start typing away. The other thing is test data. What's going on with test data? I am going to go to share screen. I'm going to go to here. And of course, this is our D2L page, and you check it frequently. And I would like to thank those of you who uploaded different programs. And if anybody wanted to do review one, you could, that would be great. But again, second week class, what are we doing? Here's some other notes that I put in after assignment 1. We don't use the console. We round to 3 decimal places. Unless it's money, then we would do dollars, and that would be 2 decimal places. Methods. The first program was all about you using methods. In the review, we talked about how I wanted the main to be all methods. Well, I'm taking a look here. This was somebody's main. And thank you, Mr. Morgan, for contributing this. But you notice we have 2 simple lines for input, because we just need to get the numbers. We're not doing data checks where is it greater than 0? Is it not a decimal? If you start to do more than one line, you don't necessarily need a method. So I was okay with these two this time. There's a good use of a method. Passing two parameters, returning a value. Here I'm passing, in this next group, I'm passing. But you notice how everything is broken down and laid out. And that's a habit you're going to need to start to get into in this course is being organized. And as we go, you're going to say, oh boy, I really need to be organized. And down here at the bottom, we see the ever popular display. Everything looks great in the display. One thing that I would have also had in the display, and I use this term, echo print your input, which means up here you had op side and a J side. You had those sides. Well, I would have liked to have seen those in the output as well. But otherwise, this is what I'm looking for in main. This is what I'm looking for in internal documentation. A lot of times I don't get it because all y'all wait till the last minute to do your program. You knew assignment one was available, boom, should have had it printed out right away. Assignment two is available, boom, hopefully you printed it out right away and read it. So your mind starts thinking about it. Don't wait till the day of and say, oh, I got a program, do I have to look at it? Then you're going to be really scrambling. This program is interesting and it's looking for these things called saddle points. And a saddle point, first thing I need to do is understand it. So if I got ready and looked at, again, test data, if I got ready and drew all 5 of these arrays, 3x2, 3x3, 4x2, and I went through it by hand, would I be able to get a better understanding of this is why it's 5 and 8? If I come back up here, row, there's that, 5 and 8, that's it. Here, yeah, and I start going through the different combinations. First of all, how am I going through these combinations? I need to calculate them by hand. How are my nested loops developing for me to go through here? Okay, so over here, I'm starting to think an algorithm. And okay, so, in my main, I may be doing something like input the array, something as simple as that. Heck, the second thing I might want to do is display the array just to make sure it's filled properly. I can load stuff into memory, but if I can't see it to make sure that it's loaded right, then what am I going to do? So I'm down here, I'm inputting. First number is the rows, the columns, and then I fill the array and display it. Now all of a sudden I'm getting points. I'm saving it. I might even upload it at this point instead of trying to do this gigantic program and then it doesn't compile and run. And then when I look at it and go, well, I don't know what works and what doesn't work. And I kind of do because I've been doing this a long time. But, and then after that, I might need to, all right, now I might have the work, calc saddle, and all of a sudden I'm starting to, I might do num array, as I'm making notes to myself, num array, and that's going to be my input. And I might have to store it in something called input array. And then I might have to pass that input array. All of a sudden I'm just starting to create a main. And I would say, okay, I'm going to do this first thing in the main. I'm going to get the method written and make sure it works. Stop. Then I'm going to put this line in, write the method, make sure it works. Stop. Then I'm going to finally do this display array, all of that inside of there and start to do bits and pieces. I might calculate all of the saddle points before, so there's a process that I need you to try to develop as you write these programs. And again, a lot of you are coming from 121 and that's acceptable. You just finished working with arrays, but I made this one a little hard because I want to see what you can do. Can anybody get this? Does everybody get this? Does nobody get this? And I've used this before. So, here we go again. I filled the array, display the array. I write stuff all over the place. Any questions on what I've talked about up to this point? 15 minutes of blah, 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 blah. Can I get a thumbs up? Make sure you're still there. All right, Delapa's there. Aruna's still there. We've got a call. Yeah, there we go. David's still there. All right. So we have some people that are still there, and that's good to know. Let's get ready and let's start chapter 12. And as I said, this course is classes, classes, classes. And if you're not up on your classes, you may have to go back and review. And that's why I had those review programs the other day. You may have to go back and review chapter 6, where you did a lot of work with classes. Chapter 5, in our book, you did a lot of work with methods. But in chapter 6, you hit hard with creating classes and instantiating objects. And hopefully I'm not blowing you away with my terminology. It's all things that you should know. Like I said, I've been at Hack for 24 years. This is my 25th year at Hack doing this stuff. So hopefully you're buying into the Kool-Aid that I'm selling. All right. Man, I can remember I started programming, not in high school. We didn't have it in high school. We had one computer, and it was in the office where the guidance counselors were, and it was to tell you what career you might be interested in. You put a whole bunch of input. It was boring. And I can remember going through, straight programming in college. And it wasn't until late 80s, early 90s, we started getting in and hearing about these word GUIs. So yeah, I'm old. Gray hair, the whole 9 yards. We started hearing these things about GUIs. And I don't mean to keep repeating myself. And again, this console is for programmers. That's the advantage of it for programmers. We don't use that. We are GUI people. And this is familiar. Yeah, in the 80s, late 80s. I'm telling you, it was late 80s because I can remember teaching high school computer science. I do like my book. I use the book a lot. I don't know if you have a hard copy book, but yeah, there's the console. That's boring. You get all kind of messages, and we'll talk about those later in this class to help you debug your program. Because otherwise you're going, well, I don't know what's going on. Oh, it told me to go to this line, and I didn't get much help from all of this information when I compile the program. All right, and again, this is a no. This is a no. But yes, this is a yes. Well, are you all taking notes? Are you doing paper and pencil? You going to rewatch the recording? Do you have a book? Do you have a book and notes? I'm like Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I like my book. Wait a minute, this is crooked. There we go. I like my book, and I write stuff in all over, different colors, red, blue, black, and so on. I don't know what you do. Hopefully you have a good way of taking notes and not just sitting here. If you're just sitting and watching, you're probably looking around the room right now, and that's not good. Okay. Let's see what's going on. A GUI uses this term event driven. Okay. I have to put something in that area. I put something in that area, and then I click to create an event. And this word event, we're going to start to see more and more what an event does. We need to handle an event when it occurs. Okay? So it's event driven. Programs like you're going to do where you work with files, you use big data files and you run it and you just get the output. That's something called a batch program. There's no user interaction. Okay. A batch program, you just click it and it runs. Some of you had me in CPS 121. And the last thing was I gave you this big data file. It had 1,500 pieces of data in. And you click run and it ran and spit it out output. There was no user interaction. And a lot of what you folks are going to be doing down the road is you're going to be working with big sets of data. You're going to be getting the how-to from a mathematician, you're going to write the program, and a statistician's going to put it all together. So if you want to be a program, make sure you're strong in math, which is required, but don't forget about the statistics part of it as well. But that's the new team thing that's going on in business today, those three positions. Okay, so we have these pieces in this GUI, and we're going to start to talk about them. They're called controls, and we have a couple of different types of controls. Okay, under the controls, we have a label. That kind of makes sense. We have a text field. That's where the user input comes from. And we have a button. And that's where this action's going to occur and an event takes place. And as you typed in those code listings, so part of typing in the code listings and learning those is you're not sitting here going, oh my God, he's going 500 miles an hour. You're going, yeah, I already understand a bunch of this stuff. What a label is, a text field, and a button. I've used them a little bit. All right. Everything comes from this Java FX library. If you don't have this edition of the book, you have to get it because everything we're going to do is Java FX. The last version of the book used AWT, and so we're not using that. We're trying to stay up to date with what's out there right now. And from what I'm understanding, we're not too far from a new book coming out with something else. But for now, we're learning Java FX. And hopefully we'll learn it well enough that if you have to switch something else, you can. In this Java FX, we have this library, and in this library, we have tons and tons of classes. And that's why this is called object-oriented programming, because we're going to use those classes and instantiate objects and work with them all over the place. No sense of me writing this up on the board or writing it on a piece of paper on the doc cam. It's here. It's in your book. It's in your PowerPoints if you ever needed to review those. I don't talk or teach PowerPoints because there's not enough in there for me. I need to go, okay, I have two labels, I have two text fields, I have buttons. Again, these are three of the controls that we're going to look at to start. We're going to use a lot of other codes as we go along. Any questions? So far, so good. Labels, buttons, and text fields. This is our input. This is going to make an event happen. And then we're going to look at ways to display the output. Right now, we can just display it in a message box, but we'll learn to make these bigger and be able to put the output in. Now, why use these? Well, what if I said, run this program, boom, number of hours, 40, pay, $15 an hour, click. Oh, wait a minute. I want to make that 50 hours. These are easily editable. I can go in and make changes at any time. Keep adding new data, run it, keep it. I don't have to go back and compile and run and wait for all that. It's like boom, boom, and go. Boom. Oh, wait, I typed it wrong. I can fix it. I don't have to waste a whole run with bad data. So there's lots of user-friendly. This is what you want to see. This is an app that you would like to see, assuming I get time and a half for overtime. Okay, so how do I lay all this out? This is where we start. All the world's a stage, as they say. All the world is a stage, and this is now working with something called a stage. Your screen, your GUI that you create is a stage. Now, on that stage, you know, if you've ever been to an opera or something, you may have a scene. You may have several scenes on a stage. We're going to take a look at putting several scenes on a stage. But for right now, we're going to go one scene, and that one scene looks like this bad boy right here. Okay, we're going to put that on our stage. Some of you had a little trouble with this. Hopefully the videos helped and so forth. You need to do this application class. We must do something called extended. We're going to hit some things in chapter 12 that in chapters 9 and 10 get explained a little more in depth. Like, what is an abstract class? What is an abstract method? In this case, we have an abstract method. And a quick note on it, when we have an abstract method, we have to override it. That means there's a method in the class that's written, but in order to extend application, we're promising, because that's how abstract classes and methods work, we're promising to override it. And that means use the same name. Questions? I hate when I'm doing all the talking and I'm not getting, I see silenced microphones and I see names on screens. Any questions? Well, hopefully, as I do this, things are going to start to make sense from when you did type it. Oh, man, he's got stuff written all over the place. Code listing 12.1. I might make a program, call it my skeleton. And in my skeleton, I might have all of this typed. And I load it up and then I'll change the name, instead of my first GUI to whatever I want to save it as, and save it and have all these lines typed in so I don't forget about them. Up here, what do we have? We have the application package, and inside of that, we have the class application. Here we have a package called stage, and inside of it, we have a class stage. That means somewhere we're going to be using some of this stuff. And oh, look down here. Here we have an object being instantiated from the stage class. We're going to call that object primary stage. So this and all of this is going to be up to this point. We're going to do over and over and over and over again. Okay, so we say we extend application. And one of the things in application is this method called launch. And we are passing in an argument called args. We don't need to know anything else about it. This is my main, this starts my program, and off we go. Boom, we're ready. Now, what happens here is because I'm doing launch args, oh, what's this line? This line comes over and says, the main method, launch method, is inherited from the application class. Just what I meant. Man, this guy does a nice job with his bullets. And you'll see almost all of the bullets, and when I read through it, I have highlighted. It creates a stage object that will be the window, and it calls the start method. So inside of here, this launch, we don't need it, is doing two things. It's creating a stage object, and it's calling the start method. Well, the start method is something that is laid out just like this. Public void start with a stage object. By extending application, we are promising to override this method called start. The only thing that's in it right now, the original version, is public void start and an object. There's no code inside of it. That method that's tucked away somewhere in this class called stage, we don't need to see it. We just know that. So up to this point, we're going to start almost every one of these programs. I might as well type it once and save it. I might as well type in my name and the date and all of that and save it, and then just reuse it over and over and over again. Everybody understand what I mean? Does that make sense? Can I get a thumbs up? Or a happy face or something? Yeah, okay. Everybody's still pretty good. That's great. All right. So in here, I am saying, oh, primary stage. Here's a method, set title from the stage class, that it looks like it's taking an argument in and storing it in something inside of that class. And then I take that object called primary stage and I use a method called show, and it puts it up in my title. Again, this is a method dot show. This is a method dot set title. They're all in your stage class. That's tucked away. We don't need to see it. It's tucked away. And again, we're going to be writing lots and lots of classes. Again, classes we use to make objects, object-oriented program. Okay, so all those notes are there, feeling pretty good. da 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 da. I mean, I pointed some out just to tie it into what we were talking about. Anybody want to buy my book? Harry Potter, Half-Blood Prince. There it is. Does anybody know what I'm talking about when I say Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince? Because he got stuck with the old crappy book and it had all kind of notes in it and everything. Nobody? Did somebody say yes just to amuse me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So we have the stage, and now we're going to get ready and create a scene. Once we create a scene, we're going to have to add it to the stage. So I do 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 steps. Create the controls. Okay? Create a way we want to lay them out, and then add the controls. And I'm going to say a little bit more about that in a minute. Create a scene and add the steps 1 and 2 to the scene, and then finally add the scene to the stage. So get the pieces, lay them out, put them on a scene, and add that scene or however many scenes you have to the stage. 4 basic steps. Boom. Luckily, I have my Joker. This is my card mark. Put that in, and I know where things are. Okay. Creating controls. Let's see what we have. So, in this Java FX package, we have lots and lots and lots of classes. Here's a class, one that's called label. We talked about a couple of other, we talked about creating a message. So that's going to be from the label class. We're going to create other things in a minute from other classes, like a control, like a button kind of thing. We'll look at that in a, but so now I have one, and it looks like I can give it a label right away. Hello world gets stored right on that. I instantiated the object message label. Cool. From the class label. So this is basic. That was step 1. Step 2, I have to do a layout. Hopefully you're skimming through all this before you, like I said, I had a student one time who's like, I'm doing all the code listings, but I'm not understanding. Well, they were typing them up and like administrative assistant typing them up, making sure every letter was correct and running them and not really understand what's going on. Hopefully you're looking back through all this before class starts and you're going, yeah, okay. I can put everything in an H box for horizontal, a B box, or a grid pane. We like grid pane. We'll get to that eventually. So here's a horizontal. I have 3 controls on it, button 1, button 2, button 3. They're laid out left to right. If I run out of room, it does a return. If I move this vertical line left, it's going to adjust and so forth. So the view, it might be distorted when we start. Vertical in a grid. Back in the days when we taught Visual Basic, you had to take the scene first, and then there was a side menu. You would click and put buttons on. You would click and you would put everything on here that you needed, labels and so forth. And then you would rearrange them, and then you would go and write the code. So step 1 was to lay all of this out, that which we now call scene. Okay, step 1, boom, I created a message. Remember, I said, do all of my controls, nice and simple. Here I'm doing 2 controls, label 1 and label 2. Step 2, I'm going to put that single control in an H box. H box class, label class. I instantiate an object called new. So you're doing this over and over and over and over. And this layout's going to become more and more familiar. We're going to get to a point where we're going to talk about polymorphism. This is a class and this is a class. And you're going to go, yuck, I don't like that. Okay. So I get it. I lay out. You notice I have 2 parameters here to send in 2 labels. And of course, you should understand that order is going to matter. Okay. Again, step 1, create the control. Hey, thank you, documentation. Step 2, make it an H box. Thank you. Step 3, I'm going to take that H box and, here's another class, scene. Creating an object called scene, case sensitive, and I'm passing in the parameter H box to add to it. Finally, step 4, the big finale. I take that scene and I'm gonna add it to my object primary stage. I'm gonna use the method set scene. There's an object to that object. How's it look? Well, again, I may now be adding a couple more lines to my skeleton, because I can always alter this layout from H box to V box to whatever kind of box I want. Here's scene.control. I'm ready to use labels. I could do whatever we're going to use for buttons, probably button. So some of the stuff we put in over and over, you may even want to make notes beside these to yourself so you know what's going on. Okay, here we go. My main, I launch args. Boom. That comes back to that conversation we had earlier about applications and so forth. And And here's my 4. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. I set the scene, I put a title on, and I show it. So yeah, for this, we have 3 methods: set scene, set title, and show. And that's it. Now, we have the 4 steps down. That's great. This little bit that we have to start, this is going to, okay, yeah, we're going to start making this better and better and better. Questions? As you read through, you're going to see some things, and I don't have to spend a lot of time on this because you can pick it up as we go through. Setting the size, good to know. 300 by 100. What's the 300? 300 what?
It's the width.
Okay, but how's it measured in terms of
Pixels?
pixels? Yeah, I covered it up real quick. Pixels. Something that you should have talked about in 121. Hopefully some of you aren't crying because I keep saying you should have done this in your intro course and you may not have. Oh, here's another method that's available to me. I can set alignment. And of course, you probably always want to read through and say, what's the default? Well, it's going to look better centered, but I have control over the alignment. It's a lot of stuff I have control over. And 12.3, you type this one in and you're going, okay, good. Application stage scene. Yeah, I know. Oh, layout is H box instead of V box. Quick switch, no problem. Here's label. And oh, I need to import another package if I want to do the left and center. And there it is. I'm going to take my H box and I want to center it. Adding code, adding code. Now you have code you're going to keep building here, cut and paste. You're going to say, wait a minute, I have a program, but I did a lot of that in a code listing. Can I just use that? Can I build upon that? Yes, yes, and yes. And hello world is actually centered now. It was just that one control, a label, and it's centered both vertically and horizontally. Okay, 12.4. 12.4. Displaying images. Not a lot I can talk to you about this. You need to load an image into memory so that you can display it. Or what most people do anymore, we don't need to load that into memory. We're going to grab it by its URL, grabbing it off the internet and putting that in here so that it's stored and I don't have to download another file. Okay, let's see what's going on. We highlighted this. I have a class called image, and I'm gonna, oh, look at that. That's nice. I can grab images off the internet instead of out of your file if I store it somewhere other than the same folder. In a minute, we're going to look at grabbing it off the internet, which is going to be similar to just this. Once I create an image, I have to load that into this image view object. We've seen this before when we worked with files. We had to load the file into a name and then take that name, so we had the communication listed within the program. You're doing a file review program for me as well. So a couple more classes. And again, you start forgetting some of these, like, oh, I got to look back in the book, or you have them already typed up once and done. There's the main, that's all still good. And yeah, I love the documentation. Create an object, okay? Then we're going to take that object and load it into another object so we can display this hot air balloon. And if you did it, boom, you got a hot air balloon. If you downloaded any kind of image, it didn't have to be a hot air balloon. You could have done whatever. But here, this is what I was talking about a minute ago. Look, I got a smiley face going. I got a, yeah, what if I want to go and get it off the internet? I can use its URL inside of here instead of C:, or just putting it because it's in the same packet. And this is usually quite preferred. Quite preferred. Okay. Setting the size of images. You know, one of the things I want to try to teach you to do is once you get something to work, play with it. You know, add other lines. See if you can do this. See if you can do that. And I found my good programmers are the ones that are always asking questions. Can I do this? Can I do that? Why don't you try that? And then somebody in the class like, well, here's what I did. And you get that interaction going. With this remote style, we lose a little bit of it. But again, hopefully you're going to be more friendly in the breakout rooms. We're going to go there in a little bit. I'm doing more talking than normal. So, okay, well, what do we got going on here? 12.5, last thing we're going to cover, the layout containers, okay? We're going to start to make them look a little bit nicer. Here's one that's an H box, right? I need my application, I need my stage, I need my scene. It looks like I'm working with images. I come down here and yeah, I got, I create the objects, I add the objects to image view. So that's like my step number one, creating my controls. Now I can start doing all kinds. Set fit width, set preserve ratio, set. What if I wanted to find out more about, well, could you Google image view class methods and see what all's available? Yeah. Image view class Java methods. Okay. That's always an option. All right, questions. A little bit more. Coming over here, you know, oh, there we go. This was step 2. Add all of those to my layout, which is an H box. Add that to my scene. Add my scene to the stage. Start it, you know, and again, can you do this? Slash, dot, 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 if you really wanted to in your programs. I do. After my main, I always do that. And I might even put the word methods in the middle so I can understand what I'm doing as I type through. Little things that you might pick up when you read through the book. Spacing. There's a 10. That means there's going to be, anybody have a guess? Anybody? I'll wait. Still waiting.
10 pixels.
Yes, there's going to be 10 pixels of space between each one of these. This is a really good book, folks. We've been using this Gaddis book for quite a while, and I like everything he does. It's not too technical. In 162, you get a technical book that you have to work with. Here's something called padding that you could add if you wanted to. This is space that appears around the inside edge of the container. Okay, not too bad. Not too bad. There's an example of it. H box with padding. Put 30 pixels of padding around the H box. Okay, cool. Little things going on. I want to get to, and again, we know the V box and so forth. The last thing I'm going to talk about today, because I'm about talked out, is this grid pane layout. And the grid pane layout is like putting a matrix together. Okay, but each entrance in the matrix is going to be a control of some sort, or an image, or something. All right, so what do? I call the class grid pane. I create a new grid pane. Again, another class, instantiating another object. Inside, it looks like I'm going to be calling a method called dot add and some things that are going to be added. That's not a very good example, but let's see what we got over here. Grid pane, boom. When I add things to a grid pane, it's going to add them top to bottom, left to right. So depending on the size, it will go here, 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 here. And there may be times where you want to make one of these blank to make it look nice. Okay? But grid pane is nice. I like grid pane. 12.8, here we go. My layout instead of X box or V box is now grid pane. Nice. I come over here. I have a bunch of labels. Label 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. Step 2 is to create a layout, right? I'm using my grid pane layout this time. I'm going to add things. Label 1, 0, 0. Label 2, 1, 0. So I'm going to go to specific spots and add these. Again, here's my object. Here's my method add. I'm going to take my scene. I'm going to create a certain size scene. And finally, I'm going to add it. Boom. And there they go. Boom, 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 boom. These 4 controls, these 4 labels were added to the scene. Okay. And there's more information on grid pane as you go through. Man, look at all of the methods that I can use. Grid lines visible, true or untrue, an H gap, a V gap I can put between them. Code listing 12.9 was, oh boy, lots of stuff was going on in 12.9. And if I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, 12.9 was one of the ones you had to type in. 12.9 was one of the ones you had to type in. Yes, thank you, Mariah. Okay. We covered 5 sections. Hopefully the code listings helped. I want you to now, and you can use 12.5, that's going to be a big part of it. I want you to display to me a label with the first person's name, whatever you're in your group, somebody's name not going to be Bob. Another, so you're going to do all the names in your group. Bob, Gail, Tom, I don't know. Probably only going to be 3. There might be a group with 4. So you're going to add these 3 labels, and then I want you to put a picture and display it. Whatever picture you want to put, I don't care. But that's what I want you to work on. And when you finish, you call me and say, look what we did. And I say, yay. I mean, first of all, you have to talk to each other to figure out who each other's names are. And again, I can see who has their cameras on, who doesn't. I can see who's talking. I can see who's sharing their camera. And as you remember last week, I jumped into a couple of those groups quick and said, hey, I can see that nobody's working together here. Again, I would have one person typing, one person with a book close by, have different roles within these groups. Good? Any questions? Any questions? I can now stop the recording.